About changing your habits and trying to change your habits, and how might that play into sort of adopting more of a blue zone lifestyle?
I don't think changing habits work. I can't find anything in the academic literature that suggests you can change a habit for long enough to make a difference. When it comes to longevity, there's no short-term fix, and we're in a culture that looks for short-term fix. What I argue, and what I do in these cities, and when I argue for individuals, is you have to shape your environment so you're more likely to do the healthy thing than the unhealthy thing, or that the unhealthy thing becomes really hard to do. I'd say one of the biggest things you can do is move to a healthy community, a community where it's easy to walk places and it's easy to get fresh fruits and vegetables, and you're around engaged people. It's to redesign our world to mimic these places that have achieved the outcomes we want if we also want to live a long time and attack this $3 trillion a year problem we have with healthcare.
Well, it is.
Number one, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So right now we measure the economy. We should be using a gross national happiness index to measure. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, a politician's job is to make us happy, to the greatest amount of well-being rather than. So that should be the North Star for all policy and how we're measuring our presidents and Congress and the Senate. Are they making us happier? It has to start with an evidence base. So we should have a sort of a squad within the federal government that focuses on well-being. And you can't ramrod things through Congress. It requires a conversation and a consensus. And but we have to know what to do, and we have to be able to measure it. And those are the first two steps, and be funding it. Mm-hmm. You're way more likely to be happy if you're in a committed relationship. So I'm with the lovely and cruciferous Kathy Freston.
She is lovely indeed.
And she is vegan, so I eat a lot more vegetables.
Yeah,
it turns out that people who are eating 7 servings of vegetables a day are happier. I know the importance of sleep, so I'm not penny wise and pound foolish when it comes to my time. I get my 8 hours of sleep no matter what. I usually don't use an alarm. I know that I'm more likely to be happy if I'm healthy, so it is almost impossible to get me to spend a day without getting some form of physical activity I like to do. I love people, and I make time for my friends. I try to socialize 6 or 7 hours. I take a nap.
You take a nap every day?
Pretty much.
Do you?
I'm good at power nap.
Wow. What time do you wake up in the morning?
I wake up after 8 hours. So if I went deep, last night I went to bed at midnight. I woke up at 8.
Right.
I took a little nap before I came over here, actually.
That's good, man.
So yeah, it makes a big difference. Drinking a little bit is fine for happiness. Drinking a lot is probably against it. So I kind of cut off at 2 or 3 drinks.
Unless you're me. It's not good.
There's no upside to being more fanatic. I could have maybe written this book quicker, but I would have had less fun doing it. So, I mean, thanks for pointing that out, but it's true. I put a deep emphasis in consciousness and for the most part, enjoying my days with the right balance of doing something productive that will yield that life satisfaction, that pride that I think is important.
Yeah.
Now, why are these diseases that we're so concerned about preventable? Because they're rooted in lifestyle choices. So the challenge is, how can we encourage people to make better lifestyle choices and discourage them from making worse lifestyle choices? What are the possibilities that are available? So I'm first going to talk to you from my perspective as a clinician, what I can do as a practitioner to help people make better and not make worse lifestyle choices. The first thing I can do is to educate them. I'm an educator. I have great faith in the power of education. The literal meaning of the word education is to draw out. It's to draw out that which is inside already. I firmly believe, and I've seen this over and over, if you present information to people in ways that they can understand and connect with their own experience, they will move in that direction. I've seen that over and over again. But we do a terrible job of health education in this culture. If you think about the health education you were exposed to in schools, it's a joke. You know, with somebody, usually an unhealthy person, standing in front of a class telling you what you should do. But it is I absolutely believe that you can, if you can explain to people, I'll repeat this again, if you can give people information that they can understand and connect with their own experience, they will move in the right direction. So that is our first option, and it's a very powerful one. Second thing you can do is to model health for people. And this is something that I teach to all the physicians, medical students, residents, allied health professionals that come through the University of Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine. You have to embody health. You have to model health for patients. It is very powerful if a practitioner, somebody who has medical knowledge, simply by example can inspire people to make constructive changes. And if there's a disconnect between what a medically trained person is telling you and their own being, it's not going to compute. It is very difficult to make these kinds of recommendations to people if you work in a setting that's inconsistent with what you're saying. You know, if you're telling people about what a healthy diet is and then the institution has a fast food restaurant on its premises, that's a major disconnect. You know, we have to work to make that consistent. The third possibility, and this is one that people often never think of, and it's advice that I commonly give to patients. If you want to have better habits, better lifestyle habits, spend more time in the company of people who have the habits you want to develop. I mean, it's that simple. You want to be more physically active, spend more time in the company of people who are physically active. You want to eat better, spend more time in the company of people who have better eating habits. Totally simple thing, and most people never think about that. In the area of emotional wellness, there's a great body of research showing that moods are contagious. In fact, they can be tracked through populations in the same way that we can track the spread of infectious diseases. Exactly the same mathematical models. If you have a happy friend who lives within a half mile of you, your chances of being happier are increased by a particular percentage. And the effect falls off with distance. You know, beyond a certain distance, it's a negligible effect. So this is a very simple, practical strategy for helping people make better lifestyle choices. So these are things we can do on an individual level. Education, modeling healthy behavior, suggesting to people such an obvious thing to spend more time in the company of people that have the habits they want to develop.